If you've been researching soundproofing for months and still haven't built anything, this is for you. It's really a common idea that what you need to do is learn more, understand more about how to create a sound isolated space. But the truth is that what you really need is to make a handful of critical decisions to move the project forward. What we have is not a research problem or an understanding problem, but a decision problem. Soundproofing is a technical problem. So technical problems always lead people to jump to their search browser, or these days to like ChatGPT or AI chatbots, and start asking questions. How do I do this? How do I soundproof a door? How do I build a soundproof studio? How do I soundproof a wall, right? You've probably queried a bunch of those things already. But the truth is that once you get to a certain point, those technical problems are not the thing that's holding you back anymore. What's really holding you back is the decision of which types of things to use and ultimately how to move this project forward. The truth of the matter, and this took me honestly a long time to figure out myself, but the first principles ideas of sound isolation are honestly pretty simple. We're talking about keeping things like adding mass, making sure there's an air gap, making sure that everything's airtight, and decoupling things so that you don't get flanking paths of sound. I could teach you that instantly. Like right now, I just gave you a general concept of how sound isolation works. But the hard part is not the physics. The hard part is always going to be dealing with the constraints that you have. There's no such thing as a perfect studio. So you're constantly having to battle that idea of like perfectionism in the textbook sense versus the reality of what actually happens in the real world. So real technical problems look something like this. For example, you may have a basement room with really low ceilings, maybe in the range of like 8 feet or even less, and you're trying to figure out what's the best ceiling solution so that you can stop the sound that you're trying to stop, but not lose so much ceiling height that you're in like a room that feels like a tiny little cage. That's a real constraint problem. You can't solve that in a textbook. That's a decision you just have to make. Another example would be that you have pipes going through your room and you need to block them off somehow, which is going to mean that you're going to have to potentially lose space in your studio space, lose square footage that you don't want to give up. That's just a constraint problem. That's the reality of the situation. You need to tell yourself, hey, we have to figure out what to do here. It's not perfect, it's messy, but we're going to make a decision on what to do. You might have other examples, like if you've got fire situations where you have to have a sprinkler in the room, or say you need to meet fire code and you need some sort of fire blocking, but you need to figure out how to keep it isolated and still meet code. These are things that, again, won't be shown in STC ratings in a wall, but become a real world application where you have to make a decision and move forward. The real key point that you're going to notice with what I'm talking about in this lesson is that these type of decisions have trade-offs. It's not a clear like, oh, we need an STC 63 wall, so we're going to build a double wall system with 2 layers of drywall at each side and an 8-inch air gap in the middle between them. That's not the way that this works. It's more so about saying, hey, we can't have our cake and eat it too. What's the next best option that we have? So some other common decision problems that you're going to run into. A big decision that people run into on this community often is the idea of using rock wool versus fiberglass, and which one's better. This is one of those decisions that guys as a technical problem, but really it's saying, hey, if I'm going to spend extra money, am I going to regret it later because it doesn't actually work? Another question you might have is, should I do 2 layers of drywall or 3 layers of drywall? And these type of questions are asking a deeper question, which is, what if I commit and then realize later I wanted something else? So there's always this fear of commitment that's constantly going through every decision you're going to make throughout this process. You might ask questions like, do I need a floating floor? Or can I get away with doing this XYZ thing and save some money here? Or will that actually cost me money? Again, this is circling back to this idea that what if I start and can't afford to finish this project? Think about that. That's like the deeper fear that's going on through all this research, and it's ultimately leading to these bigger decisions that you just have to make. This is all to say that indecision feels responsible, but the key thing is it's not. The responsible thing to do is to quietly and quickly make decision after decision after decision that is going to lead you towards moving this project forward rather than just sitting still. And here's a counterintuitive argument that is why information makes decisions harder, not easier. So if you're feeling like you you need to do more and more research, you're actually potentially making your life even more difficult and making those decisions that I've been talking about this whole lesson more difficult to make. Ultimately, more information just postpones commitment. Every new option that you open up just unlocks something that should have already been decided. So one of the things that I always have to enforce in our own design firm is making sure that we move the clients through a very specific formula, a phasing system, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, that makes it so that the project is never going backwards with just more and more options, but that we're making decisions moving forward, ultimately leading to building the project. Another thing that's really hard to kind of take in is that forums and comment sections are going to reward uncertainty. So they're like the opposite of what I'm trying to have you guys do here. So if you're constantly going to forums and comment sections, you're just taking in new opinions of what other people think. And there's no way that you can make decisions by doing that. You're constantly going to be second guessing yourself. What I've had to do over time as a designer and running this engineering type systems logic that I do is that I've created my own creation of systems that are immune to what other people say on the internet. They have nothing to do with what we do. So if someone has an opinion, that's great. They can have their opinion, but it's not going to hold us back from making decisions and moving a project forward. So I'm kind of going to synthesize this down into 3 major decisions that move every project forward that we work on, and that if you're doing this as well, that will help you make your own decisions. So number 1, you always want to have a clear idea of what your performance goal is. And contrary to popular belief, that actually may not be a exact number that you measure with like a decibel meter. More so, what I usually look for with my clients is abstract but concrete goal that we can talk about, such as my wife can work upstairs and won't be bothered by me playing bass in the basement, or I don't want to hear the neighbor's dog barking because it takes me out of the groove when I'm trying to mix. Or for example, I don't want to hear airplanes flying overhead when they're taking off at our local airport. Those would be concrete goals that if we hit them, we know we've succeeded, aka you don't hear the airplane, you don't hear the neighbor's dog, and your wife is not bothered when she's working upstairs. Those are strong decision makers. Everything that you do in the design can lead to that ultimate goal coming to reality. If you don't have those, you don't have a concrete way to make decisions. Another obviously very big decision you're going to have to make is the budget reality. So coming into a realistic budget that is within what I like to call a zone, not necessarily an exact number, but a range, and also making sure that you're accounting for not just materials, but labor and other contingencies that may come up, such as increased scope, cost, or potential extra material cost or unforeseen costs that you just couldn't plan for. And lastly, third, the structural commitment, again, one of those more obvious ones, but it is a huge part of the decision-making process. So these are usually the bigger structural commitments of 1, where do we want to build? Is the basement the best choice, or is the backyard better? Is the garage going to work, or should we go to the backyard? Those type of things that, hey, is this project going to even work structurally in these areas? That's huge. Again, the next step once we do that is just saying, okay, what are the structural elements that we're going to throw into this project to make it work? And that's really where the experience comes in of saying, hey, we want to have X door, this amount of drywall, we're going to have this air gap, we're going to have this decoupling mechanism. All that is helping us make decisions based on the goal. So that's why I put it as the third rung in the decision hierarchy. So the interesting thing to think about now is, what does progress actually look like? So progress is ironically not necessarily making the perfect studio, but progress is making decisions that lead to the best studio you can possibly build within the constraints that you have. So that's ultimately what we're always doing at Soundproof Your Studio. And it's really important, if you're going to take this project on, that you understand that you're not building the most perfect textbook studio, aka why, researching endlessly on Google is not going to get you necessarily where you want to go, because Google and textbooks and AI is always going to tell you the best solution, not necessarily the thing that's going to work best in your specific situation. And kind of a cool way I like to think about this is, finished studios aren't perfect, they're decided. So the studio comes to be because of all the decisions that were made to have it be built that way. It seems obvious when you say it, but when you think about it more deeply, you're like, oh yeah, the thing that needs to be done is just decision after decision after decision, and someone who's in charge saying, hey, this is what we're doing, it's going to work, let's move forward. And I just want to leave that idea with you, saying that, a slightly imperfect plan that gets built is always better than that textbook perfect plan that never leaves your browser. Think about that one for a second, because I think that's like where a lot of people sit in this, right? You're constantly just planning, but it never leaves the page. So in conclusion, if you're stuck, if you haven't built your studio yet, if months or even years have passed, stop asking what material is best and start asking what decision needs to be made. And the interesting thing is, once you start making decisions, the technical side actually gets really boring and pretty straightforward, and that's a good thing. A lot of people see the sort of technicality of sound isolation as this big mountain they need to climb, when in fact it's a lot easier than they're making it out to be. They just need to wrestle with the constraints and the realities that it's not going to be perfect, but you're going to get a great result if you follow this system and do it right the first time. All right, I hope you guys have enjoyed this lesson on a lot of the insights that I've taken from designing other client studios over the years. It's not as straightforward as it is in a textbook, and it's important to realize that your specific situation is always going to be unique and therefore require a different view take on all this, and ultimately a series of very critical decisions that will move a project forward. My name is Wilson Harwood. I design Soundproof studios all over the United States and Canada, and I look forward to helping you through your project over the coming weeks. I do these videos on sound isolation and acoustics every Monday. I'll see you all later. Thanks so much for watching.